Welcome to this video. Last year I made a video about how Apple's supply chain works and people seem to like it. Apple, like any other multinational company, has materials and components that come from across the globe to make their products. Running a supply chain like Apple is a very difficult process even without a pandemic running globally. Normally there are times where, say, a weather-related event could block a certain part of the supply chain, like when an ice storm shuts down Louisville, Kentucky in 2009. Local workers could not get to UPS's sorting hub, but workers could still travel by air, so the company flew in personnel from other cities to keep the hub running. The airport largely remains operational after, and for the rest of the world this was not a big disruption. The problem is, with the coronavirus, it is striking everywhere. As of writing this video, around April the 10th, the United States has 475,000 cases of COVID-19 active, while 26,000 people have recovered and 17,000 people have died. In China, there are 81,000 cases and only 1,116 are active, and 3,300 people have died. Although I would take these numbers that come from China with a grain of salt. Around the globe, there are 1,632,000 cases and 100,000 deaths, while 368,000 people have recovered. This disease is now a global pandemic causing shutdowns across the world. How does one manage a supply chain in such difficult times? On Monday of February the 17th, Apple became one of the first companies to show and report how bad the coronavirus was impacting its businesses. During the month of February, the amount of computers produced in China went down 48% from the previous year. Because of the lockdown, it put a lot of China's industrial capacity off the line. To begin with, Apple is highly dependent on its factories in China, as evident on the back of most iPhone, iPad, and Mac. Before our current system, there was the batch system of manufacturing. This was used by the Ford Motor Company. What they would do is, by using a batch system where a company would guess how many cars it would sell and then they would make them. What ends up is sometime the company overestimates and sometime it could underestimate. In this case, the company, or Ford in this story, builds a lot of warehouses across the Rust Belt. This extra stockpile would not only serve when a company predicts less or more cars to be made or sold, it also comes to use in a shortfall in material, or if any natural disaster in the supply chain, or if another supplier produced fewer units than needed. The problem with this model of manufacturing is that it used a lot of extra land. All of these warehouses are expensive to maintain. Many years in the future, a Japanese car manufacturer by the name of Toyota saw the problem with this and created a new type of manufacturing called lean manufacturing. And with this, it was the first car company to make 10 million cars in a year. The basic concept is that the company would make as many cars as they would sell, which this model, all of the parts of a product like a car would come at just the perfect time to be assembled and sent off. The other manufacturers of not only cars but anything from appliances to consumer electronics followed suit with the just-in-time manufacturing model, or sometimes called the Toyota production system, or sometimes called just-in-time manufacturing. Apple's current CEO was hired back in 1998 to implement the just-in-time manufacturing for Apple so they can cut costs and make more products. This especially comes to use when now Apple can regularly sell over 10 million units of a device in the first week of launch and over 100 million in a year, not to count the other things that Apple makes. The accuracy is further helped the implementation of machine learning that is often used to determine how many devices a company needs. This is why Apple has small amounts of inventory at an Apple store and gives them a futuristic feel. The average iPhone just stays in a store for up to 1 to 2 days before being sold. Because of this low dependence for storage, Apple in 2018 ran into a problem as company insiders thought that Apple made too many phones and the iPhone stayed in the Apple store for more than an average of 3 days. That is because people were not buying as many iPhones as before. Company insiders called this a fire drill. Apple ran advertisements in their stores to trade in their phones for up to $400 and had promoted it on The Ellen Show. This year, it is the opposite. Rather than low demand and too many products, Apple rather has too little product and too much demand. So how do they manage under the crisis? One of the first things that Apple did was to shut down their stores in China. This was done in an effort to contain the virus. All the buying of iPhones, computer, and tablet is now happening online as a result. Second, Apple decided to ban any orders more than one of a product. Say if you wanted to buy more than one iPhone, you now can't. This still means you can buy an iPhone 11 and an iPhone 11 Pro, but not the same version. Why would someone need more than one Apple device, you ask? Well, first, say if you're a tech YouTuber doing a giveaway, which is not so common as compared to the other two reasons. Second, if you're an app developer and you need to buy more than one phone, and one for your personal reason and another one for development needs. Third, say if you have a large family and all are upgrading your phones at the same time. Lastly, there are many people that buy iPhones in the US because it comes early and sell them places elsewhere where there are not as many iPhones or a late release of an iPhone. Like in China, where government censors often delay the release of iPhones, which causes people to buy many phones in Hong Kong and then sell them in China. These estimations were made before March when the situation in America was not as great but not as bad as it now, suggesting that this also goes the other way as less phones are produced and less people go out to buy them. The concern is how long will this last? If this is just a short-term shutdown for just over 2 months, then it is fine, but if this is over 2 months, then this could be a problem. Apple is a premium brand and they don't hide it. The baseline 13-inch MacBook Pro has just 128 gigabytes of storage, and where I live in Canada costs $1,700. Meanwhile, its Windows-based counterpart costs just $1,300 and comes with 256 gigabytes of storage. The whole story of whether the extra price is justifiable is a story for another time. The problem arises when people don't have enough money to buy the next iPhone or other Apple device. This comes from data as China, as the amount of iPhones sold has gone down by 61%, or to now 494,000 units. When we look in America with little social support and no universal healthcare, things could be different for premium brands like Apple. Although the US government has plans to cover 29 million people with no health insurance, the people with private insurance may have some difficulty depending on what insurer you're with. A lot of insurers cover the costs and some don't. But what I can say is though, meanwhile in Canada and the rest of Europe, everyone is covered with universal healthcare and there's paid sick leave. This puts their people in a better position to spend money not only on basic items like food and clothing, but more expensive and premium priced items like a Mac or an iPhone. This crisis is a bit problematic for the supply chain, but for Apple and for the other tech companies like Google and Microsoft, it's just a small setback in their budgets. Apple has over $250 billion saved up in their foreign bank accounts, not knowing what to do with it all. The only thing is that Apple makes their money largely from selling hardware, and the other two make their money from software and consumer data. The true crisis is for the millions of kids who don't have access to quality Wi-Fi and internet access. 44% of low-income Americans don't have home broadband service. These people are earning under $30,000 or less. Whether the big tech companies will come in and help or the government, only time will tell. Thanks for watching this on video, and if you like this video, be sure to subscribe, like, and watch my video that I made a year ago on Apple's logistics network. Also, if you have time, watch some of my other videos. Again, thanks and see you in the next one.